Another campaign that we have all, probably everyone listening to the show today has heard of is the New Coke campaign, not Coke Zero. A lot of
Mhm.
people confuse it with that, but it was the New Coke campaign where product development bypassed all consumer insights. They went to market with a new flavor without any type of testing, and it failed miserably. Nobody liked the product. The sales decline was massive. And they basically had to eat crow and go back to the original formula and then spend several years testing the waters on when it would be a good time to introduce a new product, which Coke Zero ultimately came out of that because of that massive misstep.
I remember that. Such a good lesson.
I know. So, what advice do you have for our listeners today when there is a dictate on a fast turnaround? What kind of conversation should they be having with the internal teams to let them know and really reinstill why the need for speed has got to be slowed down?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard conversation if it's not already recognized. But, really, if you don't slow down and do that research, it's really going to affect the bottom line, or it can. So I think that just communicating that, getting everybody on board that there does need to be some research and insights, and whether you can get that quickly or you need to take a little bit more time is, kind of dependent on the situation.
Well, that is a great segue into our next part of the interview here, which is really unpacking your framework and really distilling why this very practical, repeatable approach for insights-driven repositioning is so very, very important. What's the first thing that marketers should assess when beginning to consider a reposition?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I've always done is take a look at the brand health. How are you positioned and how are you liked in terms of, customers, and how do they look at you? How's your brand awareness out in the market? How much do customers really love you or want to, buy your product? And, how is that customer sentiment? How are you positioned? So that's the first thing that I would do would be to take a pulse check if you don't already do that.
And I think a lot of people fall into the trap of brand health with taking a look at very, very mid-funnel analytics and looking at that as brand health. What you're really talking about is awareness, is behaviors or thoughts about the brand, perception, so on and so forth. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for our listeners today who are going to fall into the trap of that middle funnel, MQL, SQL analytic? Brand health is very different.
Yeah, 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 it is very different and it can be done quickly to get a good pulse of where you are, but you really want to see, what is that sentiment? You can look at reviews, you can look at market share. It's not necessarily how your campaigns or how your marketing is performing. I mean, that would be a really like far back metric. So really getting the comparison of yourself and competitors in the marketplace is, what you really want to do.
That's some great advice there. What are some of the most effective ways that you can gather current customer insights?
Yeah, I think the customer insights is really the key piece to it all. And it's definitely going to be, you want to do like a mix of qualitative and quantitative assessment. So I think a lot of people start with the qualitative, getting the numbers and the facts, and that's the most important to them. But that's really not where you should stop. You also want to get the sentiment, and because getting the quotes and listening to customers and repeating back their what they say is often what has led me to those really big aha moments, and then that's what's really shapes the whole repositioning and remarketing because you're understanding them. So I'll go a little bit deeper into that for some like quantitative measures. You can look at retention numbers first off. You don't have to talk to customers, but what's your retention? What's your net promoter score if you're looking at that? If not, you should. What are your customer satisfaction scores or reviews? And you can do sentiments and analysis in that way. then you also want to start off with your customer research by looking at, market stats and trends. And I like doing that because often knowing what's going on in the marketplace kind of shifts or formulates, my hypothesis of what I should go after, see where we might want to dig down deeper, where there might be some holes. So getting that kind of frames everything.